I guess like this is an interesting matter because I think like we can observe a parallel between the East and the West here, in that like with the Buddha, you have the Vedic Brahmins, and one thing you'll notice is that Vedic Brahmanism has become a bit of like at least one thing that could be noticed is that Vedic Brahmanism has become a bit of a political and colonial project, wherein they do claim kind of far out stuff like our teachings, our the Vedas, and our caste of people, and our deities. They are eternal. They've always existed, and they talk about like history going back 10,000 years, and even longer. And and then I guess like the Buddha was kind of like a heretic with regard to that, in that he's known as a profound mystic, a very very powerful mystic, and yet he said that the Vedas were not eternal, that they were not authoritative even. And this is interesting, where it's like we could kind of take a kind of rubric along the lines of like basically what he taught about them was like you have these teachings passed down, and men, because they've received them from people they deem wise, they say these teachings are true, and the Buddha says in some ways they're true and in some ways they're otherwise. And uh, and so you have this split in the pathway. It's like you have the old tradition, and you have like a mystic coming and revolutionizing the system in radical ways. It kind of like breathing life into it, I would say. And interestingly enough, you have that with Jesus, with like the Pharisees. It's like the Pharisees really like came after him. Like they didn't like what he was
Yeah.
saying, because he was very radical. It's like he was kind of taking the flame from them,
Well,
and
he
the
was
flame
saying he
of
was
divinity.
God.
Hmm?
I'm saying they hated him because he was saying I am the I am. I
Oh
am
yeah,
being. Yeah.
and he was fulfilling like prophecies of of the Messiah. And I guess what's interesting is that you don't have a discontinuity here. It's not like just because there's this radical mystic that the old tradition just disappears. With the Vedic Brahmins, they continued into Hinduism, and with the Pharisees, they continued into rabbinical Judaism, and they have like ways of kind of rhetorically armoring themselves against the very existence of like these heretics. I find this kind of as like an interesting thing, just in that this kind of like split in the paradigms is one that's based in virtue. It's like one group. The Buddha gives the example in the Aganya Sutta. He says, and this is like a sutta that covers like cosmological origins, or like the cosmogenic processes, where like the cosmos, how it kind of like cycles in terms of its generative functions. And he says that these Vedic Brahmins, he makes a very interesting comment here, where he says the Vedic Brahmins, they imagine that they come from Brahma, that they are direct descendants of divinity. He says, just like the rest of us, they suckle on the woman's tit. They were all babies. They're creatures, just like the rest of us. And I think that that's like a profound
Unforgivable.
statement to make. Like, no, these are not God men. These are just men. Um, and to have this emphasis on virtue be associated with like power, vision, and knowledge. That's what the Buddha teaches too. It's like the Buddha has a parallel case. It's like with Jesus, it's like Jesus is walking on water, and Peter walks across to him and is sinking because of a lapse in faith, but regains
Yeah.
that and makes it across. Same with the Buddha and Sariputta. This is 500 years before, and there isn't, as I understand it, any basis for a syncretism. These are parallel
Well, yeah,
power
because if there's
emergences.
only one, it's one truth. They all saw and felt the same thing in those Gnostic visions they had. It's not like it's not it's yeah. I mean, there's only one truth, but the thing is that so there's only one way. Everyone else is subverted. So which the question is, which one is that? Of course there's going to be parallel messages because we all live in the same reality.
Well, interestingly enough, it's like parallel super mundane powers, like parallel cities, potencies. And then with the Buddha, in Digha Nikaya 2, he even mentions the knowledge and vision. So it's like when he speaks about rebirth and when he speaks about karma and when he speaks about Nibbāna enlightenment, he's not speaking about speculative matters. Like he's not saying, I just think it's sufficient to believe in such things. He says these are directly verifiable. He says these things
Yeah.
because he has seen for himself. And furthermore, he has taught his disciples to see for themselves. I think that's an interesting, approach there, where it's like, the powers they simply occur to one who's, in the training of wisdom and virtue. The knowledge, like the knowledges, the visions, they uh, they simply occur to one who is ripe, and it's mind directed. It's not something that requires any medium. It happens by the direct whim of mind. Mind mind goes into the perfected state, the perfected I guess like it's talked about, as I understand it, as like a faceted gem. You have like a rough gemstone and you cut it into these kind of like this refined shape. And it's brilliant, it's clear, it's bright, and and then it's threaded by a neck, like threaded like a necklace. So it has a hole in it, and there's this string passing through it so that it can be worn. And it's described as like this perfected mind is like holding up a this gemstone and observing it with clear eyes. So as I take it, it's like seeing the blueprint and the more subtle nature of one's own existence in a direct way. It's holding it up and just seeing it and being able to just point it. It's like, like I'm going to take this and direct it at this task, and this task will be done. Simple as that. No
How did
need for the
Buddha
anomaly.
how did Buddha get that knowledge, that forbidden knowledge, or Gnostic vision, whatever you want to call it? How did he get those visions?
Well, interestingly enough, it's not by a self aggregation, I guess. So like he doesn't simply, I guess, like over exceed others. He's not an overachiever. Rather, he comes to this life ripe. And I think this is a fascinating idea of like this kind of crossover between karma and free will. It's like karma is like
Yeah.
causal conditioning, and free will is like the ability to steer your own life and conditions via the intentions. And he even says like karma is intentions. He says like chaitana, o monks, chaitana is karma. Intentions are karma. Or maybe he says
What do you mean
karma is
intentions are
chaitana.
karma? Oh, wait, elaborate on that. What do you mean intention is
So
karma?
he's basically saying like when you have certain causal conditions, those are intentioned. So what your karma is not something ever unintentional. And this is a very profound
Ah,
idea, I think. It's like, it's like we tend to think like based on external conditions, we are subjected to various states of
right,
affairs, and rather it
right.
is a
It's from
direct
you.
a direct consequence of our intentions. And so
Okay, okay.
his existence as the Buddha, it comes as a direct consequence of his intentions in past lives. He generated merit, and he's fulfilling
Mhm.
a cosmic function. Like it's like there are other Buddhas, but they're rare to come by. It's like it,
So does that mean that it's because it's always intentional? If I understand you, it's actually always your fault.
exactly. So it's like when we don't
Ah,
have virtue and wisdom, there is a sense in it's like we have work to be done where we can't give up. We still have a proactive we have proactive measures to take, but on the flip side also, there is a sense in which there can be situations of, like, better luck next life. There are situations where, like, the
right.
world does not work out clean, it's like we don't just will ourselves to
So
be
yeah,
better than we are,
in
but we
hmm
still can
yeah.
steer
So in Jew,
things.
yeah. So yeah, in Jewish mysticism and like Kabbalah, I mean, they all really talk about the same thing. So they just like there's like different like whatever. But yeah, I think like how it's always your fault is like we choose to be here to learn something, and yeah, it's like so if you fail, it's like you choose to come down here, and if you fail, that's why you get punished because you accepted the consequences that you might fail in straying away from the monad and descending towards hell, or however these other religions like interpret it. So I just yeah.
I think there's an interesting crossover that's brought up in that Aganya Sutta that I mentioned, wherein the cosmic cycle is described as like you have this realm of streaming radiance. It's a heavenly realm where there is no rupa. There's no bodily existence. So beings in this realm, they still have karma, and based on their karma, they delight in creations. They delight in their own creations, and the idea is that they simply wield form. So form is malleable for them, and they create effectively like worlds without bodies. They just delight themselves, and I imagine it kind of like a soul soup. And based on their karma, eventually a deity in this realm, a Brahma, is descends down into a divine mansion, and they pull beings out of this realm of streaming radiance according to their own karma and create a world system with these beings in it. And I imagine like as this crosses over into like Western thought, Christianity, that
Yeah.
this would imply something along the lines of like you have this kind of like landowner, and they're the first, like in one sense of talking about them, it's like they're the first being. They precede all other beings, and they give contracts to these beings based on what they are, what's suited for them, what's fitting. And in that sense, it's like I like to think that there is like a lot of opportunity. It's like in this kind of creative site, like this creation cycle, we do have the opportunity for like a Buddha to arise, and for us to be with a Buddha, us to become a Buddha. We have the opportunity to cultivate virtue and wisdom and whatnot. I like to think like, even though there are a lot of consequences, there's a lot of skin in the game. There's a lot of ways in which this, compared to the realm of streaming radiance, would be quite hellish, because it's like there's a lot of sorrow here. We have the risk of falling into a hell that, as far as like the Buddhist framing of it, it's effectively eternal. Like it's not eternal, but for a human reference point, it may as well be eternal. And so it's
Hell is
not.
hell isn't or is eternal.
Well, the Buddha says that all things are transitory, but he describes hell as, especially the deeper you go, it gets to be like unfathomable eons long. So, you have like that word kalpas, and they refer to eons, and I think like mahakalpas are like unfathomable eons. And in that respect,
Well,
like,
if hell isn't eternal, what's the consequence of sin then?
well, that's the thing. It may as well be eternal. And it's also like the Buddha describes, as I understand it, a more brutal hell than is captured in the West. And his
Yeah,
idea,
but then you experience an infinite amount of heaven afterwards, right? If it's transitory.
well, that's the thing too. It's like a
Oh, it's
being.
a cycle. You keep going through heaven and then you go through hell. Like
It's not necessarily quantitative like that, where it's like a being doesn't just exhaust their karma in hell. They go to hell according to their karma. They are pulled out of hell according to their karma. And we could only imagine that
uh-huh.
there is a certain momentum there. It's like if you have the karma to go to hell, then who's to say that once you're pulled out, like I guess at the end of the cosmic cycle, the fundamental elements, one of the elements swallows up the world system. It swallows up everything in creation, except for some of the higher realms. And so most of the beings
Yeah.
go to the realm of streaming radiance. And I think the idea here is like you still have your karma though. It's like if you went from if you descended from that realm originally and you ended up in hell, who's to say you're not going to have that happen again?
Wait, so is it just a never-ending cycle, or there's a point where you reach like your final cycle and then you're finally unified with the monad?
Well, the Buddha describes like he said, I guess like he gives this simile for the working away of karma, where he says it's as if you have a great mountain, like a massive mountain, and every 100 years, every century, you wipe it with a fine silk cloth. I think he says gently with a fine silk cloth. The time that it would take to wear through your karma is akin to leveling that mountain. And
Right, because we're so far from the infinite one. Like we fell so far. We're literally in layers. Like incomprehensible how far we've fallen from God. So yeah,
well,
I get that.
well,
That
this
makes sense.
includes like like I guess like it's
That's
difficult
why we
to
never
draw
deserve
exact
heaven.
parallels.
We don't deserve heaven at all because we're just so much into sin.
Well, like the Buddha speaks about even like the I guess like the higher existences, the 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 various heavenly realms, and the realms of heaven that aren't even within the creation itself, like the streaming radiance kind. He describes these as existence, and he says after viewing 92 eons of of the cosmic cycle, he sees, or 92 cosmic eons, I mean, where it's like he's seeing 92 full cycles. He says he like when he's asked about like, okay, you've seen this, now just tell us the origin of existence. Tell us about like these, you know, more fundamental properties of reality. He doesn't he basically tosses aside those questions. He says it would drive a man mad if he
Yeah,
were
it
to
would
seek
be
out the
ineffable.
answers.
That's
He
like seeing God with your eyes.
well,
You can't even describe it in word. Like that doesn't that's like
it's not as
you
simple as
can't
that
even
though.
answer that. Huh?
He seemingly does not find the origin of even one being. Even he doesn't see where the elements come from. He doesn't find the origin of even one being. And so even though he saw 92 cosmic eons with like intimate view, like it's like he presumably saw each of our past lives in intimate detail, one by one, hundreds of thousands of them. He saw this for all of the beings. And he says he basically says like don't seek out the fundamental answers within existence. He says it is enough to be done with existence. It is enough for it to blow out, which is a
What do you mean by
fascinating
that?
statement. It's like this. Remember,
Yeah,
this is the
yeah. Expand
existence
on
that
that.
includes the higher heavens. He says it is enough for those beings in the higher heavens to be blown out, and that's kind of like the word for Nibbāna. It's like you have the defilements, the asawas. They're like fires, and uh, and fire is like it's a common kind of like simile kind of uh it's used in similes a lot in the Buddha Dhamma, but like it's like Nibbana can be thought of as like the full enlightenment is like the blowing out of that fire. It's like cooling off, it's like cooling off the passions. And
Fire soul. I'm pretty sure. Isn't fire soul?
fire. You said soul?
Yeah, soul. Isn't fire? Isn't the fire like your astral flame? Isn't that? Isn't it soul? Solar
Well, you have
in
this
Buddhism?
idea within Digha 2 of the mind made body. And interestingly enough, the beings in the realm of streaming radiance are described as mind made. They don't have like coarse bodies, but they do have this container of it's like it's called a mono maya kaya. And this is what is kind of like fundamental to the higher samadhi that the Buddha talks about in this Digha 2. And this kind of samadhi is the kind that is the one that accomplishes the powers, the vision, and the knowledges, or the visions and the knowledges. So it's basically like what the Buddha verifies. We could presume what he verifies the nature of reality with. And in Abhidhamma, the more analytical or the more systematic side of the Dhamma, it talks about this monomaya as having three distinct aspects. So it is a storehouse of karma. It contains our trace, and throughout all of our past lives, it would contain the sort of fundamental picture or like tunnel of each of these. And it also like that. So that's number one. Number
Sorry, I'm just
two,
stuck on what you said. I'm stuck on what you said before. You said that it's okay to be done with reality or something like that. What
oh,
is
to be
that?
done with
Could you
existence.
expand on
He
that?
said it is enough to
Yeah.
be done with existence.
What is that? Like, what does that mean?
So that's incarnating,
Like, just
taking
give up on
rebirth.
on. Hmm?
Taking rebirth even in the higher heavenly realm. So even going into the realm of streaming radiance, wherein it is unfathomable eons of bliss. He says it is enough to be done with it.
I'm just stupid. I just still don't understand to be done with.
So
I
I'll
don't
give you a
understand
picture
that.
here. This kind of ties into what I was talking about there too. So I'll
Is it
bridge these two
like
together.
nothing here? Like, it doesn't matter what you do here because you're just going to be experiencing like eons of bliss. Like, this is infinitesimally does not mean anything.
Well, it is meaningful, I would say. I'll kind of like
No, it is.
try
It
to
definitely is.
tie it in. Like there's a sense in which it can be like wandering in the dark. It's like the rebirth cycle is like it's like he doesn't make like it's like you have in Mahayana you have this idea of like saving all sentient beings. The Buddha doesn't do that in his lifetime, and presumably he never actually taught that. He never taught like it's like you can feasibly save every single being that you're around.
No.
Like most people failed. It's like most people didn't
Yes.
didn't have that opportunity. And so for a lot of people, this is like a labyrinth. And any state
Yes.
of existence they take, if the Buddha if the Buddha would describe it as existence, he would say like there are states of being are existence that they're kind of experiencing, and fundamentally those existences are transitory because they come and go. They're non-self because no one of them can be willed. You can't say may it be like this and not like that. They just come and go as they please. And furthermore, their dukkha, their dissatisfactoriness, because none of them is a refuge for happiness or welfare. Any refuge is like an island that'll be swallowed up by the ocean. And I guess this ties into the other thing too, though, because like this monomayakaya, it's got this storehouse of karma. So it's like there is this continuity between lives, and so it's kind of sustaining that. And it's also the awareness, like the second part of it is the awareness of the samskaras, the awareness of form impressions. So it contains this part of us that would directly interface with coarse reality, coarse material form. And lastly, it has the blueprint of Nibbāna. And so when it is that we're freed, this monomayakaya verifies that. It's like we know we're freed when we're free. And it's because we have had that fire blown out and we're not gone now. It's not simply the annihilation. Like he talks about like the Tetralemma. You have um these categories of existence in which don't apply to Nibbāna. Existence does not apply to Nibbāna. Non-existence or annihilation does not. Transcendent unity, where we have this systematic sense of everything, or where we have this systematic sense of like, um, I guess like truth in and of itself. Maybe that's my sense of it. Like a consummate, true thing, a consummate view that does not apply. A non-consummate view, like the fourth, the transcendent exclusion, it does not apply. So we don't. It's not simply beyond what we have a grasp of with our truth. It's none of these things. And so in Abhidhamma, they talk about it as unaimed at, and unobtained. So right now we don't have it in a substantial way, and it's not something that we're even aimed at. We can't really pierce through the fog to understand what it really is. And I think the best way to put it is that it's unestablished. I think that's a beautiful way to imagine this, is like, it's like our soul is established, our soul, for lack of a better term, is established in all of these existences. It's going here and there, it's going up into higher realms, down into lower realms, kind of lost in the sauce. But when it does attain Nibbāna, it never has to take those existences again. It would be established in existences, and that's the sense of talking about it as established. But when unestablished, it is not, established in anything. It's simply beyond. And I think that, like, this this is, I just like that way of looking at things. I think that's a nice
What's Buddha's credibility?
his credibility.
What? Okay, hold up. No. My first question is, are you more subscribed to the? I assume you're more subscribed to the Eastern esoteric thought, right?
Well, I'm
You're Buddhist.
inquiring Eastern Orthodox, so I go to Greek Orthodox Church.
Oh, you're Eastern Orthodox.
Full inquiring, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so what? How do you know then that Buddha wasn't subverted by a fallen angel?
Hmm.
Like the false light. Like what if he was subverted by the false light?
I think that I guess, like, one case I would make is that modern day people, I guess, like, I would say this is kind of anomalous. It's like, we really don't get consistency in these mystical kind of
No,
breakthroughs.
of course not.
Hmm?
That's the double.
Well, that's what I'm kind of getting to, is like, we don't have this consistency in mystical breakthroughs, and yet there is a common territory. So, like, you'll
Yes.
notice if you look at kind of like somewhere like Dharma Overground, the website, you have people talking about very exalted experiences of meditation, and they I guess, like, they talk about things that have very ancient roots. It's like they talk about these four jhanas that are brought up, the four immersions brought up in the Digha Nikaya 2, that talks about all these powers and the visions and the knowledges of the Buddha and his disciples. And
Yeah.
you even have in these communities talk of what are called the powers. It's like people having kind of like breakthroughs, not just in meditation, but in fruits of meditation. And I think that it goes without saying, though, that we don't have people in this world right now that we can really point to as examples who have a consistency. Like, they can't simply fly through the air if they want to. Maybe you have cases where people do that on
I
an
think
off.
most people are in the lower frequency. They wouldn't even see it. Like it's a lot of people are just crystallized in the material world, so they wouldn't even see it or believe it if it was in front of them. I think there are people who can do that. I think there's it's like they talk about, like the Masons talk about, they have the ability to send like an energy through the ether and all the way from across the world and then kill someone and make their heart stop. Like I actually believe that shit.
Oh yeah,
But it's like,
when I got trained
yeah,
in, I guess, like, the guy who I got training in that sort of like psi related stuff, he was uh, he was one of the guys who they based the character off of, the main character in The Men Who Stare at Goats, and his colleague was the one who stopped the goat's heart with his own mind. And he even
yeah,
said he was speaking about his colleague, and he said when he did this, it was heart wrenching. He said that he experienced the death of the goat, and he deeply regretted it. He said it was like, it was traumatizing.
yeah,
And
that's crazy.
this was a goat. He said, like, one kind of like, I guess, like, thing that eases what happened about like just killing this animal was that
Yeah,
this animal really did want to die. This was an animal that, like, was being tested in horrible ways. It's like it had a brutal existence, and so it was probably ready to die when this happened. But nonetheless, that did happen, and I guess like I would just say like in response, like to kind of close off my response to your previous question, though. Um, I think that we do have like a common territory that you see people kind of get glimpses of. You have these ancient phenomena that are accounted for appearing in the modern day, and yet and even some of the supernatural stuff a little bit, but you don't have
Atlantis, like
it
they all of them
in a
talk about
practical way.
Atlantis and like all these events that happened, like the flooding, like with Noah. I think all the other religions they talk about a flooding. Atlantis, they talk about Atlantis.
Oh, okay. Um,
Yeah, what?
um, that's kind of like a monomyth theory. Have you heard that term?
Oh, sorry. Give me a second.
But yeah, like I think that there was something
Yeah, I'm
substantial.
back.
Oh yeah, have you heard of the monomyth theory?
Monomyth. What they all share the same myths.
Yeah, it's like a mythological like crossover kind of thing going on.
Yeah, but they, like, do you actually believe in actual history that they give us?
Um, I think the way that I look at things is that it's like you have this idea of like the Matrix. It's like I would kind of like look at like Maya. It's like you have this illusion, but it's not a stale illusion. It's like it's the illusion that is illusory even when the world is the way it is now. So like my sense of it is that it's self-reinforcing. And this is why these kind of like examples you have of like kind of anomalous, out of the ordinary things happening, they happen only under very precise conditions, and these conditions are not easily sustained. And so, even though you can have people tap into that same ancient essence, that deeply substantial territory, they can't do it reliably. Like, you can't just tell someone to, blip into this higher state and then perform a spectacular feat. It's simply not going to work. And like I would just say we don't have examples publicly of people who can regularly do that. Um,
I mean, I think it's in the files. I mean, you have these groups that do it, like these cabals that do it. I think it just is suppressed. I think this information is suppressed. But if you actually look into it, I think it is proven that there's people out there that could do this.
well, I guess like
Like,
I would refer to like a very
I
high
mean, here's
end,
the thing:
fine
they all
grained
do
kind
this
of
on the
phenomenology.
yeah.
Like
Okay.
it's like you have like say past life regression hypnosis. You have people recalling a handful of past lives. Some of them, I think,
Yes.
as many as like 100 past lives. But when the Buddha talks about this in the Digha Nikaya 2, with his conversation with King Ajatasattu, he describes not just it's like he has this list. It's like they see in intimate detail, like I was named this. This is how I experienced pleasure and pain. This was my clan. This was how I died. They see their lives in intimate detail from birth to death, or from death to birth, and they see, okay, like when I died here, I was born there. Like they see them in a sequence too. But it's like he talks about, like they see one life, they see two, three, four, 5, 10, 20, 50, a
Yeah.
100, 1,000, 100,000 past lives, eons of the world expanding, eons of the world contracting, eons of the world expanding and contracting. And so you have this sense of like a scale upon a scale upon a scale, like seeing an entire lifetime. That's a lot of causality to compress into a vision. But to see hundreds of thousands of past lives in the same intimate detail, and to see like scales that are even more unfathomable than 100,000 past lives. This is not something that modern day people seem to have accounts of.
Have you been able to do that?
Oh, me?
Every day
See
I do it.
past lives
Huh?
I'm doing it now.
right
But
now?
yeah, I do. Okay,
How?
here. Well, I would say this. Okay. Would you say that people right now are stupid, more stupid today, less connected with the divine today than say like the Egyptians, these ancient people? And my number two question is that because it's deliberate? Is that the system, this matrix, may put us in a lower frequency? So if we saw someone perform something like that, they wouldn't even comprehend it because they're still in that lower frequency.
There's a
Like
100%.
there's a sutta, I think it's called the Sonadanda Sutta, Digha Nikaya 4. The Buddha is talking to this Brahmin, and he asks the Brahmin like, what is wisdom and what is virtue, and the Brahmin has an answer for what wisdom is, which is very he's an astute guy. He knows what's up, but then the Buddha says, I think the Buddha asks him like, what is the ethics that goes with the wisdom, and he doesn't know. He says like he asks the Buddha to explain this to him, and the Buddha says something along the lines of like ethics and wisdom go hand in hand. It's like one hand in the other or one foot in the other. If one is filthy, the other cannot be washed with it. It's like you can't wash your hand clean. You can't like wipe off your hand when the hand you're wiping it with is filthy. So he says like you can't have ethics without wisdom, and you can't have wisdom without ethics. And the wisdom is it kind of fits this
isn't ethics the fruit of wisdom?
well, they're sort of like um, co-arising. They're mutually dependent, and I guess like he talks about the wisdom as not just mundane wisdom. It's like you could talk about one person. In elsewhere he talks about like you could examine a person over a long time and come to see like this person is wise. It's like not the wisdom attainment of enlightenment of Nibbāna, but they're wise. They have that kind of mystical depth to them. He told like this is different than that. What he's talking about here, he talks about wisdom in the capacity of what he talks about in Digha Nikaya 2 of like a person goes into first immersion, second immersion, third immersion, fourth immersion. They attain to knowledge and vision. Once they have attained to knowledge and vision, they understand rebirth has ended. The holy life has the holy life has been won. They will not take up they will not I guess like fall into any future state of existence. So this is the wisdom that we're talking about here. And he says this has to be paired with like a kind of reciprocal level of ethics. And what is this ethics? He answers to the Brahmin. He says this ethics is when a Buddha is arisen in the world, and when a person practices the path in the like we could imagine the discipleship of this Buddha. So there's like it seems to me very clear that the Buddha makes the case of there are ripe times for wisdom and virtue, and there are unripe times. And we're born according to our
That
karma. So if
sounds
we
so
really
subverted.
were
What does that mean? What does that mean? How is there not a right time to
so
practice
if we really
wisdom?
were endowed to virtue and wisdom, if that was our birthright, we would have been born in a time when we could reap that. And
Can I ask a clarifying question?
sure.
I mean, you're referencing virtue and ethics, but I'm wondering, are these references in relation to Prajnaparamita?
Well, the
It, as far as
Prajnaparamita,
wisdom is very specifically identified as emptiness, and
it definitely has
compassion
crossover.
or skillful means it sounds like what you might be referring to as ethics or virtue.
Well, the I think the Prajnaparamita, it's the perfection of wisdom that's, or I guess paramita is virtue. Well, nonetheless, it speaks about like emptiness and whatnot, and I would say that emptiness, it corresponds to that wisdom attainment. So if you're
It actually
imagining like
is the
point
it
A,
is the attainment.
Nibbāna, and so like the idea is like you have samsara
Well,
on one
I
side.
don't know the same words. I don't know the same words because I practice Tibetan Buddhism, but I remember from my Mahayana classes, um, the depth of the Prajnaparamita, and it sounds very similar to what you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
But if
like
it is, I also have to say these words have extraordinarily pinpointed definitions. And so to say wisdom without sort of saying there's a very fine point on what that means in this system, it doesn't always translate to other people's concept of wisdom
that's for
or
sure.
sort of ethics, virtue, compassion, skillful means. All of these things have very fine points on them, and it can be hard to talk about in relation to other things without using a whole lot of other words.
I think that a good rubric for the kind of technical sense of emptiness that is fitting for this kind of address is the Tetralemma, the catuṣkoṭi. You have like the sense of emptiness as not simply being existence in and of itself. Like existence is a pretty big category. It includes like all namarupa, all things that we could name, all things that could impress themselves upon us materially. And it's not simply the annihilation of those things. So it's not like just saying what is other to all of that. And it's not simply a constant, like I would say the transcendent inclusion, the transcendent unity. I would say this is like a consummate view. It's not simply a consummate view. It's not just having things figured out, and it's also not it's not a transcendent exclusion. So it's not simply what is other to what we have figured out. And so it's like I think that what this paints out emptiness as is something deeply intimate. You know, it's not simply some experience we have. It is, I would say, like, you know, in a sense, like the unestablished. You know, it's like we have what is established. It's what we kind of like. It's when we go into states of existence after state of existence after state of existence. The unestablished. It's not just the blowing out of the one who's going into states of existence, but it's blowing out. It's the blowing out of the attachment and the craving and the entanglement with those states of existence, such that they can still have those intentions. They can have that karma, but even with that, it's not binding. You know, it's just the experience of these like this diversity of phenomena without the with I guess without the kind of we could say like the fullness of um, it being a very substantial reality. I think that's like the sense that I would talk about emptiness in. And in this sense, like it would, like I would say, it's like, you know, you have two sides. It's like it is in a sense kind of like dualistic in the sense of like the two truths doctrine. Like you have conventional truth on one end and ultimate truth on the other end. And conventional truth, like it may be like in a sense, practically speaking, empty, but it's not comprehended that way. From the purview of conventional truth, it's not ultimate truth. And there's there's practicality to even speaking about it as two truths in that sense, even if emptiness applies throughout, because
I'd say that's accurate.
you know you have this sense of like there is samsara, there like we are kind of like stuck in our rebirths and whatnot. We have this karma that we're trying to work through, and there is a nibbana, there is a liberation. But you know, I just like I like to put it that way because like I think people can get lost in the metaphysics. You know, it's like they hear the Tetralemma and they think like, what could that
How do you
possibly
work?
mean?
How does
What could
someone
this
work
empty
I
through
one
all
be?
their?
really
How does
enjoy
someone work through
yeah.
all their karma to be deserving to be united with the monad? Because
You're
he's
deserving.
infinite.
You're
So
deserving
how are
because
we
you are.
deserving?
Because you are.
Says who?
Not a fulfilling answer as usual. Welcome to
Right, it
Tantra.
has no. We're not deserving. It has to be through grace, couldn't wouldn't it? Because if it's karma, if we're going through your karma system, you would have to go to 0, right? And then you'd be united with the monad. How do you do that when the monad is infinitely better than you? If it has infinite more love than you, how are you match with infinite? How can you unite with the infinite if it does not give you grace?
There's a
I have a feeling Connor can
You
explain
can't.
much better than I can. But
I could take a crack at it.
interestingly, before it moves on a little further, um, I have seen quite a few of my past lives now. Not all of them, not nearly close to all of them, but I have seen back to indifferentiation.
Okay, there's
You all look
a
real good there.
You still no. You guys can't answer my question.
I
How do
I'll
you
take a
get?
crack at it.
You get to. Is this okay? Thank you. So my question is, this is actually a question, like a genuine question. Is it like, do you guys actually believe you will get to 0 karma, like neutral, and then you'll that will be the end of your cycle, and then you're united with the one, the infinite, whatever. Like,
Well, that's not
tell
the
me
vow
that.
I have made. But I do see um, the 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 resolution of, if you want to put it as my karma in my karmic system. Yes, I see that. And but my commitment is I'm not going to just vaporize and disappear. I'm going to keep hanging out here until everyone else goes first.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. So I want to hear you.
Hmm?
I'm gonna go. So
Oh, you said you have to go?
no, I wanted you see. Want to take a crack at it. I was like, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, so the Buddha, he talks about, like, the soul and the body in tandem, it's like he says, like, he does not proclaim, like, there's this soul. He does not proclaim, like, he doesn't proclaim there's this soul separate from the body. He doesn't proclaim there's this soul that is the same thing as the body. And then,
Right.
and so he kind of applies, like, as I understand it, like a tetralemma to it, where it's like, I guess, like, our bodily existence perhaps has some soulfulness to it. Our soulful existence has some bodiliness to it, but they aren't the same thing. It's like, when a person is in the realm of streaming radiance, they don't have a body, and yet they have the karma to return to a body. And when they have a body, they don't lack this storehouse of karma. They don't lack this awareness of the samskaras. They don't lack this blueprint of enlightenment. And so they're like, I would say, like, that's at least how I approach this idea of, like, what is a soul within the Buddha Dhamma? It's the Monomayakaya. And in that sense,
Oh,
the Nibbāna is the fulfillment of that Monomayakaya. It is the fulfillment of that blueprint. And in that way, it doesn't, annihilate the bodily existence that was, doesn't annihilate the intentioned existence that was.
Christ is king.
Nope.
Troll?
Christ
I
is
really like
king.
that story about I don't know where that statue was, that Buddhist statue that was all clay, and it was, people took care of it for many, many years, and it was like a beloved statue in the community. And then I don't know, there was something that happened, and that beloved clay statue cracked, and these monks looked into the crack and discovered that the entire statue was made of gold, and it had always been there. The
And they had to
golden
cover
Buddha
it
had
up to
always
keep it from, I think they had to cover it up to keep it from being, like, destroyed or, looted.
pillaged or
Yeah.
destroyed. Yeah, I like to think of it like that, or like how the sun is always there, even if it's a cloudy day.
Yeah.
So remembering who you are is like it's already there. It's already there. There's just a little bit of mud. No mud, no lotus.
And it's
Also
like,
from another
if you
separate
clear it
Buddhist
off, the
tradition,
mud
but I
can
love the
still land on it
stories.
again.
I can.
Was that a troll? I think that was a troll, right?
It seemed like it.
He had asked an interesting question though, but
Yeah,
Yes.
I appreciated the engagement that he offered.
Absolutely.